Hello, fellow artists. Today we're going to go over dry brushing technique, watercolor trees, a fun way to paint your background, and a person. So let's get started. First, I wet the paper just with water, then I add the color. You can see how shiny the paper is. It's really wet. I do yellow right at the horizon, ultramarine blue for my sky up there. Then I take a spray bottle, once I get a lot of pigment on there, tilt my board and let it drip, and I get a really nice blended sky. I did the same thing for the river here. Now I'm adding a different blue. Phthalo turquoise blue. It's a cool blue and it's a nice contrast with the warm blue. So I'm letting them sit next to each other, but not blend together. Now that the paint is dry for my sky, I do a little masking fluid. So I'm shaping out the trees. So I have nice color behind. So I'm preserving the sky when I do the green leaves of the tree. Just a fun little trick I like to do. Now I'm doing the wet on wet technique again here for the dirt, for the earth there. I did Van Dyke brown, maybe some burnt umber, and this is just a touch of yellow to create kind of a path. Now the fun part, I'm using a sea sponge. Now always have a little test piece of paper ready to go. Mix a lot of the color that you're going to use. In this case, it's just a little blue and yellow. You can see I mixed up a lot. And then I just dip my sponge in there and lightly press. I'm going kind of hard here because the trees are pretty dense, but towards the top, I press really lightly so you can see the sky and the color through the leaves. Now I just dipped in yellow to get some highlights. There is one tree in the front there that is lighter than all the other ones. And while it's still wet, I get some darker green. This is Payne's gray mixed in with a little ultramarine blue, and just dab in the color, not really doing any kind of structure of a tree because it is in the distance, so I don't want a lot of detail. Now while that dries, I go to the other side, getting some base horizon colors in there, because coming up here, I am going to use a different sponge to get a different effect of trees, leaves. What I'm going to do now is dip into my green, and what I'm looking for are the leaves that are on the branches of the trees. You can't really tell, but I do have a sketch in there, so I do know where the branches are of this tree that I'm painting. And kind of the great thing about doing the leaves first is that I can then add the branches where I like the leaves. So make sure to use a darker green, a lighter green, like a yellow green, or make it a fall leaf, a fall branch. Get some oranges in there. The painting is yours, right? Okay, so here is a fun part, adding the tree. This is just a gray color, mixed a little Payne's gray with some black, and getting really just the outline of the tree. And this is my base coat. I will go over it with dry brushing to get a cool bark effect. But now I'm really just following my sketch and getting the outline and the shape of the tree. Now, while it dries down there at the bottom, I'm getting in my branches. Now I have my leaves. I liked where my leaves are. So I'm doing the branches through the leaves. And I am going to be doing more leaves. So I will be covering the branches. Like I have that in mind that I will be doing more leaves with the sponge. And to cover the tree, similar to the reference photo. All right, so now the bottom of the tree is dry. Here I go. Dry brushing is where the paper is dry, and your brush hardly has any water on it. So you get that texture effect, kind of a scratchy effect, just right there. So it ended up being a little too much and too dark. So I did go back, blend some out. You can see right there, it got really dark. So I'm letting it dry, and I go back and I lift some of the color, and I ended up being pretty happy with it. So don't ever give up on your watercolor, especially if you have good paper. I'm using Arches cold press 140 pound, which can take a beating. Now I'm doing some negative painting here, going around the bird that is there. Here we go with the fun part of dry brushing again. I'm getting the shadows of the trees, and knowing that I can add a little water to smooth out the edges, I'm not really afraid to go too dark right now, because if you look at the reference photo, it's actually really pretty dark up front. Now I'm getting the lighter blue, the cooler blue. You can see how much lighter the other blue dried that we did earlier. Everything dries so much lighter. So I'm going in with my cooler blue and blending with the shadows of the trees. And it's great to have a little piece of paper to experiment with, to test out your strokes. I always have one, and I'm always using it. Now again, some more negative painting, going around the knees and everything of the fisherman, the sleepy fisherman. And I'm getting the paper right here is damp. My brush is not as wet as the paper, meaning I'm just dropping pigment in there. My brush is not very wet at all. And if you see the green marks in there, that's actually the masking fluid. So here you go. I took the masking fluid off, and you can see the white of the paper that is preserved. Now I'm just doing some grasses, a little green on my brush, doing some grasses here. Now I have a size 0 brush, and the fisherman is dry, the paper is dry, my brush is not that wet, and I've got kind of a gray violet color going on there, and I'm really just getting the outline. I'm following my sketch and just gonna get like the creases in his clothes, the shadows, and that's pretty much it. I actually decided to leave his pants white. In the reference photo, they were a khaki color, beige. I'm not really sure, but anyway, I figured it was just so much green going on. I really wanted the fisherman to stick out as much as he can, and leaving him with the white clothes, the white pants and the white shirt, but with a yellow kind of a wheat color hat, it worked out. I was happy with that. So I left his pants white, and I just did the shadows in the creases and all that sort of thing. So I'm just following my sketch, and what I did after the water was dry, I ended up going over my original sketch with a graphite pencil. So you can see around, the hat and around his knees, his arms are a little darker. That's my HB graphite pencil. Very sharp, really sharp. So here I go, getting his hat, just getting kind of a, yellow ochre color in there, maybe with a little Van Dyke brown, just getting the outline, keeping my brush really, really sharp, not much water on it at all, just enough to get the pigment on there. And then when this dries, I do the skin, the face, the arms, and the feet. So here we go. I kind of made just a little pinkish brown color for the flesh, and not a lot of detail, just kind of making sure that, there's a little ankle, just suggestions. And then I just take my brushes, just got a little water on there, and I can blend it out. If you're like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button so I can make more for you. Thank you. Trying not to overdo it, overthink it. Moving on to the arm. And, I figure he's probably got a little tan because he's a fisherman. So getting some brown colors in there and getting the elbow in there. And then when I'm pretty sure I'm happy with the colors there, then I go to his face, and no detail at all. Just, just a little suggestion of the side of his face, and I did a little darker color under his hat for a shadow. So I wanted to kind of have his face there, have a little bit of a shadow. So I let all that dry because I know it's going to dry so much lighter. Now here we go with this guy in the water. That guy is fun. Getting the birds and jumping. This was so much like fine little detail there and I did about 3 layers on the duck. So really light, then darker and darker. So definitely work up your layers as I'm doing here for the fisherman, getting the shadows and the creases in for his pants and trying to get kind of the shirt, the outline of the shirt, figuring out where the shadow is. Creases and a little bit more of an outline, getting that knee. And yeah, it's really less is more, I think, when it comes to painting people in watercolors. Suggestions are the best. Now what I'm doing is, this is gouache. This is white gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. This is Winsor Newton Permanent White. This is the fishing pole. I put down the white first, then I used some neutral tint with a little sepia and a fishing rod holder in a dark blue. And here is the final painting. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. If you'd like the full tutorial, it will be available on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Molly's Fine Art. Thank you for watching.